Well, hello and welcome again to our reading of Acts of the Apostles, and we're up to Acts chapter 21, starting at verse 17. This is Paul's visit to James in Jerusalem. You recall that Paul had been warned earlier not to go to Jerusalem, but he decided to go anyway. Genomenon de hemon es hierosoluma, as menos apedexan to hemas hoiadelphoi. So we start with a little genitive absolute. So it's we. So again, this is when Luke is with him. So we having been in Jerusalem. So we having arrived in Jerusalem, the brothers apedexan to received us as menos, happily, joyfully, pleasantly. And so again, Luke is sort of saying, well, they weren't unhappy to see us. On the following day, Paul, eis ae. Now this is from eis plus that Amy Ibo, the Amy with meaning I will go. So this is the past tense of this. So on the following day, literally he entered into, or he went to, probably just the ace has lost a bit of its force here, and you take it with the pros Iakobon. So Paul went to James, sun hemon, along with us, and all hoi presbyteroi, all the elders paragenetot, were present. Kai espasamenos, and having greeted them, ex ageto, he related, from ex hageamai, also it's imperfect, so he began to relate, kathen hekaston, each thing one by one. This is slightly idiomatic. So he began to relate to them each thing one by one, each of those things which God did among the Gentiles through his service, that is Paul's service, through his ministry. Hoide accusantos, and those having heard edoxasdon, they glorified God, and they said auto to him. You'll notice te, of course, is enclitic, which is why you get the accent back on the previous word. Theores adelphe, you know, brothers, posai muriades eis in tois iudaios ton pepistukoton kai pantes celotai tu nomu hub acusin. So you see, brethren, how many myriads, a myriad is 10,000, but this is just a general word for large numbers. So you see what a huge number there are among the Jews of those who have believed. And all, hupakusin is just like the verb to be. So all are zelotai, zealots of the law. So you see that there are huge number of the Jews among those who have believed, and all of them are zealous for the law. Kat a kethesan. Now this is from kat a keo. We get our word catechumen and so on from that. It means to be instructed or informed. So a catechumen is one who is undergoing instruction in their religious belief. Here it's just the sense of they've been instructed or informed, from kat a keo, and this is the aorist passive. So they have been informed regarding you that didaskes, you are teaching apostasia, and we get our word apostasy from this. So it's defection, religious apostasy, It's a late word, it does occur in the Septuagint. So they have been instructed regarding you that you teach apostasy from Moses. That you are teaching apostasy, you are teaching the Jews kata ta ethne, among the Gentiles. So you are teaching all the Jews who are among the Gentiles apostasy from Moses, that is from the law of Moses. So slightly difficult expressions there. So just to do it again quickly, so they have been informed regarding you that you are teaching the Jews who are among, all the Jews who are among the Gentiles, you are teaching them religious apostasy or defection from Moses, that is the law of Moses, legon, saying, not, so saying that autus, they, not peritemnon, temnane, this is from peritemno, to cut around, and hence circumcise. So telling them not to circumcise, ta tekna, their children. Nor peripatane, literally to walk by their customs. This is from ethos, it's a third declension. Neuter noun, to ethos, their customs. Peripatio it simply means to walk, but it's a Hebraic expression here. Halach in Hebrew is that same idea of walking, but to conduct yourself. So that's come into Greek as peripatein, very common in the Septuagint. So, so telling them not to circumcise their children, nor to conduct themselves by their customs, by their Jewish customs. Ti'un estin. Well, literally, what therefore is this? So it's something like perhaps what shall we do? It's slightly idiomatic here. Pantos, certainly, in every respect, so certainly acousontai, they will hear that you have come. Poieson, aorist imperative, then do this, that which we say to you. So do what we tell you. Asin, there are for us 4 men, ekontes eukain, af hiauton, having taken upon themselves a eukain, this is a vow. So there are 4 men amongst us who have taken upon themselves a vow. Paralabone, having taken these men, hagnistati, now this is an aorist passive imperative, third person, it's the second person, isn't it, singular here, so from hagnizdo, to purify. So this is be purified with them, and dapaneson, this is from dapenao, to pay, so to pay the expenses, ep autois, upon them, so pay for their expenses, hina, in order that they might, well, it's actually a future here, but they might shave their head. So slightly odd here, we're getting hina plus the future here. So that they might shave their head. And everyone will know that, now we get the subject, the point here is the uden, that nothing, there is nothing of those things which they have been instructed regarding you. So perhaps to say that in regard to those things which, it's gone into the genitive, they have been instructed regarding you, they are understood, neuter plural singular verb, they are uden nothing. So the grammar's slightly contorted here. We have to supply something before the hone here, perhaps a touter. So those things of which or regarding which they have been instructed regarding you, they are nothing. Allah, but stoikes, interesting word here. In classical Greek it means to march in formation. And then you've got this later rule of, this later meaning, which appears in the Septuagint, which means to follow the rules. So clearly, if you're marching in line as a soldier, you're following what you're told to do, and this verb stoikio takes on this meaning of towing the line, following the rules. So, but that you are following the rules, and that you yourself are thulasson participle guarding the law. Regarding the Gentiles who have believed, we apostelamen, this is from apostello, it's a word meaning we have written to you. We get the word epistle from this, of course. So we've instructed you in writing, Crinantes, having given the judgment that they, or having pronounced judgment that they, this is the Gentiles, to guard, that's to guard against, and it's a middle infinitive here, so both the idolothuton, that which is sacrificed, there's that thuo root, to idols, and blood, and that which is strangled, and porneia, prostitution. So we've seen this earlier in Acts when they were asked about what laws do the Gentile converts to Christianity have to do. Well, they don't have to follow all the laws, but they should avoid things that are offered or sacrificed to idols, contact with blood, animals that are strangled, and porneia, prostitution. Toti Paulos, at that time Paul, so Paul does as he's told, having taken the men, on the following day, this is idiomatic we've seen before, on the following day, having been purified along with them, ace aa, there's that ace Amy again, he went into, here it's got the sense of into and it's repeated with the preposition, he went into the temple, diangulone, this is declaring the ekplerosin, the fulfillment of the days of purification. Heos u, until prospera is the offering, and until the time, this is from prosphero, pros aninthe, this is the aorist passive from prosphero. You get anenkon in the aorist and anekthe in the aorist passive, on which the prosphora, the offering, was offered on behalf of each one auton of them. So we get the verb prosphero and the cognate noun prosphora, the offering. So a little bit tricky, that section there. So on the following day, having been purified with them, he went into the temple, declaring or announcing the fulfillment of the days of purification until the time when the offering was offered on behalf of each one of them. So at the end of your vow, you shave your hair, you make a vow to do something, and at the end of that you go and make an offering. Well, despite this, Paul nonetheless gets arrested. Hos de emelon hoi heptahemerai son etelesthai. And when the 7 days were about to be fulfilled, this presumably is the 7 days that are required as part of this vow, the Jews from Asia, having seen from Theaomai him in the temple, sun e keon, from sun keo, it's to stir up. You get various forms of this verb. Keo is to pour, but sun keo is to stir up. They were stirring up the whole crowd, and they were literally, they're casting, so they were laying their hands against him. Krasdontes, crying out, men of Jerusalem, bo'ethete, help us. This is the man, hot, the one. Now the hot is going to go, I think, with the participle at the end here, didaskon. The one teaching against the people and the law and this place, teaching everyone, pantake, everywhere. Pantas pantake. Greek likes the sounds of the repeated letters. So here we get a tu, topo, tuto, pantas pantake. Greek likes that, the jingling sounds of these repeated consonants. So this is the man, the one teaching everyone everywhere contrary to or against the people and the law and this place. Eti te kai Helenas as again as tohiron. And he has even further, eti te kai, and furthermore, he has brought in, he's led in from Ace Ago, Greeks, into the temple. Now, koinoo is to defile, is to make common. And this is the perfect here, and he has defiled or made common this holy place. As ungar for, and we get the, this is a pluperfect really here, but in a periphrastic form. This is from pro and hiorakotes. This is the perfect from horao. And this is the now participle, and with the verb to be. So, for they had previously seen Trophimus, the Ephesian, in the city with him, whom in Nomisdon they were thinking that Paul, Ace again, had led him in to the temple. Ekineithe from kineo, this is the aorist passive here, so the city was, the whole city was stirred up, was moved, kineo, we get things like kinematics and so on. So it was moved or disturbed, and there was a syndrome, literally a running together. So there was a mob of the people running together, kai epi labominoi, and having taken hold of, from epi lambano, this is the middle aorist participle, having taken hold of Paul, hailkon, from helko, to drag, this is the imperfect, they were dragging him out of the temple, kai euthios, and immediately, hai thurai, the doors, eklethesan, This is aorist passive from Cleo, to shut. So immediately the doors were shut. So they dragged Paul out of the temple and they immediately shut the doors. They lock him out. Now, se tune is part of a genitive absolute. We saw one of these earlier in this chapter, in fact, where you've got a genitive absolute where the subject is suppressed. Now, this is fairly common, or not, well, it's not uncommon in classical Greek. However, it's not at all common in biblical Greek, and I think this we only see very few examples of this, and they're in this chapter, where you've got a genitive absolute with the subject has to be understood. So they understood seeking apoktenai to kill him, anebe phasis. Now phasis is connected with phemi, to speak, so this is a report, a word. Anebe went up to the Chiliarch. So this is the one in charge of 1,000. So this is the Chiliarch, the one in charge of the sparer, the cohort. So word went up to the Chiliarch, who was in charge of the cohort, that Hole Hierusalem, that all of Jerusalem, sung kunetai. Now this is from sung kuno, and it's to be in uproar. This again is a late form. It's not that far removed from that sun keo we saw before. So and it's present, so it's historic present here, that the whole of Jerusalem, well, is in a state of uproar, you might say here. He, ex autes, immediately, Paralabone, having taken with him soldiers and the hecatontarchos, this is the centurions, from the hecatons, the 100, so those in charge of 100, so centurions. Catedramen, this is from kata trecho, is the verb, and it takes a different root in the aorist, so it's trecho edramon. So they ran against them, and they, seeing the centurion and the soldiers, they ceased, took tontes, beating Paul. So they were laying into him, apparently, after they'd kicked him out of the temple. So they ceased beating Paul, Toti, and at that time the Chiliarch, Engisas, from Engisdo, having drawn near, Epilabeto took hold of him, and bid him, gave orders, understand for him, dethanai, aorist infinitive, aorist passive infinitive, to be bound, from deo, with dusi, with two halusesi. This is the dative plural from halusis. It's a third declension feminine noun, meaning a chain. So he gave orders for him, that is Paul, to be bound with two chains, and he began to inquire, or he inquired, tis aa. Now there's an iso-optative from the verb to be, because in past sequence we have a reported speech. He would have said, who are you? And this is reported speech in past tense, and in classical Greek you put the verb into the optative, so this is quite good Greek here. So this is the optative from the verb to be. So he inquired as to who he might be and what thing he is having done. So what thing he had done. Perfect from poio. Aloi de alotir epiphonoon en to oklo. Now this is again good classical expression here. It's very condensed for us in English, but it's some in the crowd shouted one thing and some shouted something else. Greek condenses all that to just aloi and then allo. Whereas we have to say some did this, some did that. Greek just says the word twice here. So some in the crowd were saying something, and others were saying something else. It's just idiomatic there. Me do nominu to auton gnonai, and him, genitive absolute again, him not being able to know to aspenes, it's literally the safe thing, but it's clearly here, or correctly. So when he was unable to find out the true situation, a bit like our use of the words secure, when you understand something properly, it is secure. So him not being able to know securely on account of the thoribon, on account of the melee, the uproar, ekeliusen, he bid him, I guess thy passive infinitive here, to be led into the parambolan. That's literally the camp or the barracks. Can mean the army, in fact, in the Septuagint. It may have been a Macedonian word, so it's really the army barracks, the parambolan. Very common word in the Septuagint and other words connected with this one. When hote de egeneto epitus anabathmus. Now the anabathmus are the steps that connect the outer court of the temple with the fort, which is what this here is. So when he was at the steps, it happened, sonebe, that him to be carried, it happened that he was being carried by the soldiers on account of the violence of the crowd. So there was so much concern. The crowd was so violent that the soldiers had to actually carry him. For the multitude of the people, so we would say a multitude of people were following, Krasdontes crying out, Ire auton, away with him, from iro, to take. So ire, away with him, ire auton. Now I'm going to finish at that point, and in the next video we'll finish off chapter 21 and move on to chapter 22. The bit after this really belongs with chapter 22, and it's Paul's defense of himself.